Hi. So today I'd like to share a conversation that I had with someone online. It was actually with two people. The first was someone commented on the video that I posted on why are people alone. And I think it was a he. He said, good video, sensitive subject, can't comment on my individual circumstances, but I'm in there somewhere. Meaning that he saw himself in some of the reasons that I discussed of why people might be alone. And he asked, and I'm reading this from the actual conversation. He said, can the lonely and friendless fortify themselves against ongoing negative experiences by reflecting on a larger message, something that takes them out of themselves? And I thought that was absolutely an awesome question. And I replied to him, thank you for your comment. And that's such a coincidence because I just wrote a long post about this within the last 24 hours. So he wrote this to me yesterday, and that very morning, I had just written a long post on that absolute exact question, which is what I want to share with you today. So I said, I think I'm going to make it into a video, likely this evening, which is now, and thank you for asking. And this was the conversation that I had. So I had posted a post on Ask Reddit, and the post that I posted, I asked people, what's your real life superpower? The thing that truly sets you apart. And people answered with the most absolutely amazing answers. And I should have really looked at it before starting this video, and because I'd be able to give you examples. But people were able to not eat for days at a time without feeling hungry, stop hiccups by just concentrating in their mind, always know exactly what size food storage container was needed, know on the second when they would be called for their table at a restaurant, just unbelievable things. I can't even tell you. I'm not even giving you the most fascinating examples. But one person caught my eye, and I want to say, by the way, that I am going to share a conversation, and at the same time, I want to let you know clearly that I'm not giving any identifying details. And I sincerely hope that it's okay that I'm sharing this conversation, and most of it will be what I wrote and not any personal details or anything identifying from the other person. But it was so relevant that I did want to share it here. So one person who I'm going to make up their username. Their username was something like throwaway person. Okay, it was something like that, and that caught my eye. And when I asked on the post, "What's your real life superpower?" this person answered, our throwaway person answered, "Nothing." And I responded to them, and I said, "I challenge you to read through all of the posts and of things that other people have said, and not have something, even something that you take for granted, pop up in your head." And I said, consider yourself challenged. And if and when something does pop up in your head, post it here. And he responded, I did, meaning that he did read through, and that he posted what he posted, and he's had this discussion with many people, and he doesn't have a talent. Okay? So I was a little curious, and I actually pulled up some of their comment history just to get a sense of who this person was. And intuitively, something immediately jumped out. Let's say halfway logically and halfway intuitively. Who this person was just immediately jumped out to me. And what their talent was immediately jumped out to me. And so I didn't want to have the discussion on the post, okay, on the webpage in public, because I felt it was going to be a little personal. So I wrote the person a private message, and the message said, I'm going to tell you what your talent is, And I said, I don't know if it's your superpower because I don't know you that well. And the reason why I said that is because somebody could have other superpowers. But I could definitely tell I could definitely tell what this person's talent and strength was, without a doubt. And I went on to say, but when I tell you, you're going to disregard it. I guarantee you of that. And I said, I'm willing to tell you, and I know that I'm correct, but before I do, I need you to be willing to acknowledge that you are going to minimize, downplay, disparage, and disregard what I'm going to tell you. And if you're willing to do that, I'm willing to tell you without a doubt what your talent is. And why did I say that? It's kind of like the idea of an inoculation. I knew that if I shared with this person, with our throwaway person, to use their a version of their screen name, I knew that if I shared with them what I intuitively got about what their strength was, I knew they were going to absolutely just toss it, disregard it, and just not even let it enter their mind. So I felt that in order to tell them what it was, I first had to make it very clear to them what they were going to do inside of their head to disregard what I was about to say. I wanted to have them agree to acknowledge that that's what they were going to do. And I felt that that would give just a tiny fighting chance that they would actually take a moment to reflect on what I was going to share. Because if I didn't say that to them, they would just toss it out without thinking, or just tell me, oh, that's nothing, it's just nonsense. Okay, so that's why I did it. It was very, very calculated. And I did it for the other person's benefit. Okay, so I told him, if you're willing to acknowledge that you're going to disregard it, I'm willing to tell you what your talent is. And I didn't get a response back for a day or so, and I thought, oh, maybe I pushed this guy a little too far. And what do you know, a day later, I get an answer, and it says, from throwaway person, with a setup like that, sure. I was so happy. I was thrilled, okay? So I said to him, okay, but remember, you just acknowledged that you're going to disregard, minimize, and devalue it. Forewarned? And then I said to him, you have an excellent analytical mind. And he responded to me, okay. And he said, how do you know this? And I responded, I'm very intuitive, and I also read some of your comment history for the purpose of seeing if I could discern what your talents and strengths are. And I said the power of your analytical mind was what jumped out at me, both from what I saw and also from what I connected to on an intuitive basis. And I went on to say, I said, by the way, if you ever want to connect your analytical side with your intuitive side, and I said to him, I believe that you also have a strength there as well in the intuitive, just not as fully developed or accessible to you as the analytical side. And I mentioned that I made a video on how to access the intuitive side of yourself, and if he has any interest, it might be useful. But I was very, very careful to say that if you're not interested, that's okay too. I didn't want him to think that I was reaching out to him just for the purpose of having him watch my stuff. I said my main purpose was to say what I already said about the strength that I see clearly that you have. A guy that didn't think he had any strengths at all. And I went on to say that my challenge to him was that he should use both the analytical strength of his mind, which he already has to a high degree, and the intuitive side of himself, which I felt that he had, I just picked it up, okay, my spider sense, which he has in a strong but less developed form. And I challenged him to use the analytical and the intuitive as a tool to reach out to other people who are tired, depressed, hopeless, need encouragement, or need simple, compassionate understanding. And I said, if you become willing if you become willing, the universe will suddenly start sending you, or you'll suddenly start noticing people from all ages, all backgrounds, and all situations like that around you. People who need you in some way, shape, or form. And I said the combination of analytical strength and intuitive sensing is a very, very powerful way to help these people and to help other people in general. As well as, and again, people who are tired, depressed, hopeless, need encouragement, need compassion, or need some just help of some kind. That the combination of analytical strength and intuitive sensing is a very, very powerful way to help other people. And the most important thing, just the warmth of his basic human kindness in reaching out to them. Because in the end, more than intuition, more than analytical strength, just the warmth of human kindness in reaching out to another person who needs it, that's the most powerful thing of all. And throwaway person responded to me. And he said, and I had to smile because his personality just came through. He said, analytical and intuitive are opposites. So I'm analytical. What does that mean to me now at my age? And again, I'm taking out all identifying details. At my age, unemployed, no income, lazy, and honestly can't be bothered because I know I will fail. I've done the analysis. Again, I had to smile a little bit because I felt for him emotionally, but I love dark humor and I love edginess and just something in me when somebody responds that way, I just kind of want to reach through the screen and hug them. So I answered analytical, and so he said they were opposites. He said they're opposites, analytical and intuitive. So I said analytical and intuitive are not opposites in the sense that they like opposite, oppose. I said they're not opposites in the sense that they don't oppose one another. They're complementary in the same way that the right and left hemispheres of the brain are complementary. And I said, look, as far as his complaints about his life, I said, I'm not here to make your life ideal or even substantively better. And this is like a really key point. And this is why I'm sharing this conversation in case it's useful for others as well. I said, I'm not here to make your life ideal or even substantively better. My life is not ideal. There aren't any magic answers on how to make our lives different in exactly the ways that we want them to be different. There's no magic answers. So I said, what I'm here to do is this. Number one, challenge your belief that you have no talent. 2, identify a very strong talent that you do have, his analytical mind. 3, show how you can unite that with its complementary side, which is intuition. And number 4, tell you how you can use that to help others that are maybe needing warmth, kindness, encouragement, and to do it just the way you are, with just the life that you have right now. And I said, if I was all about my life being better, ideal, more successful, or more satisfying, I wouldn't have messaged him at all to tell him something good about himself. Why did I message him? Because even though my life isn't ideal, I want to embody the very thing that I'm suggesting to him, that despite the things that are missing in our lives, we can still reach out in a meaningful way, just like I was reaching out to him, and to make life a little bit more bearable for the other person, which, believe it or not, will add a little bit of warmth to our existence as well. So I was embodying the very thing I was saying to him. My life is not perfect, but I am reaching out to another to help them, and this adds some warmth to my life as well, just as it is. So our throwaway person responded, and he said, I refuse to be kind to people, specifically strangers in my life. I have yet to find someone who willingly wanted to be kind, who didn't already owe me something, who was just being kind out of their free will. I have never encountered someone who was just being kind to me out of their free will. And he said, after all the years of my life, and this was a mature person, you are the only person," he was speaking to me, moi, "to say a single word about any talent that I may have." Which of course blew me away, made me feel awesome, made me feel sad for him, awesome for me. I have no idea how to exploit that talent, he's saying, how to change the world, how to change my life, or how to change anything. So I'm X number of years old, and he was a mature guy, and I'm analytical. So what? And he said, "As I said, your world is great," meaning me, "and mine," he said, "isn't." And I responded to him, "Who said my world is great? I just said the opposite." I feel like I have to beat it into this guy's head. That despite that my life is in many ways lacking what I want, big time, I still try to take a moment to be kind, even in small ways, to those around me. It's just a choice I make. And I said, "You're free to make your own choice, of course." Again, I'm not looking to push somebody to my philosophy of life. I'm just presenting something, and they can take it or leave it. I said, "There's nothing to think about. Don't worry about changing your life. It isn't that easy, or I would have already changed mine. Don't worry about changing the world. It's too big of a job. Don't worry about changing a single thing." I said, "Just keep your eyes open for small opportunities to practice kindness to others who need it. A small word, a helping hand, whatever." I said, "You don't have to," because again, this guy's a stubborn and contrary guy. How do I know that? First of all, because I picked it up. And second of all, because I'm stubborn and contrary. And I recognized it in somebody else. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why it amuses me. And why I feel affection to people like that, because I'm like that. So I said, just keep your eyes open for small opportunities to practice kindness to others who need it. You don't have to. Again, I don't want to make them feel pushed. It's just a thought. Something that's in your control, unlike the other stuff in your life that is not. And that was like a key point. That one of the things about making the choice to reach out to others with kindness, with love, with support, with our powers of analysis, with our powers of intuition, to help other people, is that when everything in our life seems to be out of our control, we may be alone when we don't want to be. We may be professionally unfulfilled. We may be stressed about money. We may not have friends that we want to have. Our whole life can be deficient in a whole lot of ways, okay? But our choice of making, reaching out, I don't want to use the word making a difference because we're not changing other people or changing their lives, but reaching out to others, that is within our control. That is something that we can choose to do. So I said something that's in your control, unlike all the other stuff that's not. And I added again, and watch that video about intuition. It's just another tool in your toolbox. And use it for the good. Because, smiley face here, I wanted to make sure I didn't give this guy a new superpower and then he would use it to take over the world, okay? I was like, use it for the good, okay? Because I picked up this is a powerful guy. He just isn't in touch with his own powers. And he answered me and he said, if I shouldn't worry about changing the world, why should I use your method? Why should I use it at all? Good point, great point. And I answered, it's not a means to an end. It's an end in and of itself. And I said, here's a story. I was in a neighboring city, sitting in my friend's car, driving down a very busy boulevard at night, and I just happened to glance out of the window towards the curb. And what did I see? In the night, on the sidewalk, was a little toddler, a baby, maybe 18 months old, walking down the sidewalk in the dark towards the curb. And as I'm watching, this little toddler steps right off the curb in the dark and walks straight in front of my friend's car, okay? And I screamed. I said, stop. And my friend who was driving stopped the car just in the nick of time. I think they may have seen the baby, but they were in shock. I mean, they didn't even register in their mind what they were seeing. So I screamed at them to stop, and they stopped just in the nick of time. And I jumped out of the car, ran around it to the front, scooped up that baby that was, like I say, a little boy around 18 months old, probably just learned how to walk, too young to talk, and bounced him on my hip and looked. I mean, he was heading straight out into the middle of this boulevard, busy lanes, in the night, in the dark, fast cars, which would absolutely not have seen him in time. As I bounced this child on my hip, and I was like, where's mommy? Where's mommy? And he just kind of looked at me. This young mother ran out of a building, okay, right near where I had, right near the sidewalk where I saw this child, ran out of the building, and right behind her was an older man who I figured out later was her father, and neither one spoke English. And I handed her her baby, and I motioned to her that I had picked him up from out, because I was standing on the sidewalk at that point. I motioned to her that I had picked him up from out in the middle of the street, and that he was heading into the traffic. And this poor young mom, she looked like she was in her late teens, maybe, early 20s at the most. She burst into tears, okay? I gave her a big fat hug. Okay, asked her name, told her my name, all in sign language. She spoke no English. And her baby's name. And I gave her a big fat hug, and I kissed the baby on the cheek, and I wished her the best. And I got back in my friend's car. And realizing that I had just saved this child's life, this baby's life, I was like in a state of, I can't even explain what it felt like. I felt like I had just won the lottery. I can't even tell you. And it wasn't that the baby got saved, because I'm a firm believer that if it was meant to happen, okay, that this child wasn't meant to be, killed. I'm an atheist, so I don't say God forbid. I'm not an atheist, I'm sorry, I'm an agnostic. I don't say God forbid. Okay, but for the sake of social conventions, God forbid that the child wasn't killed. If it wasn't meant to happen, it wasn't going to happen. So I felt like if the child was going to be saved, it was going to be saved in some way or another. So I didn't see myself as making a difference in some grandiose way. Okay, because I really do feel that if the child was meant to be saved, it was going to be saved. Okay, whether it happened through me or through some other way. What gave me this huge rush was that it was me that was given this incredible gift of being the person who got to be there at that moment, to be the messenger of saving that little child's life. Even though you can say it was going to happen anyway, but the universe tapped me to be the person to do that. I can't even tell you, I felt like I had just won $1 million. And that feeling lasted, that rush lasted for a very long time. The sense of the universe having just dropped this incredible gift in my lap that they could have given to anybody. Anybody could have been the messenger of saving that child, but it happened to be me. Hence the feeling of like winning $1 million in the lottery. So I shared, and I'm going to make separate videos about these just because I feel that it's worth it. But it was actually the 4th out of 5 times that I've been privileged to physically be involved in saving the life of another person. And I spelled some of those out in the message to our throwaway person. I'm not going to do that here because I'd like to make separate, tell those stories separately, okay? But suffice it to say that this was 1 of 5 times, and it doesn't even count several other times where I was privileged to speak to someone who was suicidal and who had never spoken to anybody before about their suicidal feelings, and they happened to speak to me. And I was able to give those people, separate people, some reassurance, validation, and some suggestions how to take the pressure off that they were feeling both internally and externally. And those were precious gifts when those people who were suicidal shared with me and trusted me. So each one of those, physically being able to save someone's life or being a part of that, being able to speak to somebody who wanted to take their own life, each one of those was a tremendous gift to me. And each one was an end in and of itself. It wasn't about changing the world or making my life better. It was just being present at just the right moment to be able to share something with the world, to be present in a particular way. And I also said that there were times too many times to count, when I was able to be present at just the right moment, maybe not to save a life, but to offer a word of kindness, validation, encouragement, or sympathetic listening to another human being who needed it. So what I said to our throwaway person, I said, there's this phrase that when you die, you can't take it with you. And I feel when you speak about giving to others, this phrase doesn't apply. I may not have any wealth to take with me to the grave, past the grave, okay? It's impossible anyway. Even if I did have wealth, I couldn't take it with me after death. But I absolutely will take with me each and every one of these absolutely precious experiences of being able to be present in some way in another person's life. And if there's any afterlife, which who knows, I don't have a belief system either way, I will be wealthy. I will consider myself wealthy in all of the memories of all of those little actions and tiny words. And if there is no afterlife, if I die and just turn to dust, still I feel that the wealth that I leave behind of who I was as a person, and even the tiniest impact that I might be able to have in a positive way for others, that is left behind. Not to change them, because we don't have the ability to change things, that's an illusion, but just to give to others a gift of love, caring, and empowerment. That's what I will leave behind, is that ability of having been able to do that in all of those tiny ways. And I ended this rather long message to our throwaway person and said, you don't need to do anything. Just like it's not about changing, it's also not about doing. And I quoted a quote from Picasso who said, I paint as the sow pisses. We do what we do because it's a natural expression of who we are. It's not an effort. It's not something we have to plan. Choosing to be an expression of love and of caring in the world is just a way of expressing oneself. It's like music or art or dance. And the key point is it's not related to how shitty one's life is. Because all of this, the actions that I have taken over the years all took place during times that were very, very dark for me. Okay? Choosing how to manifest in the world is independent of whether the world is giving us what we want or what we need at any given time. It's just a way for us to be powerful in the world. It's a way to express ourselves. Like I said, like art, music, dance. It's just us expressing who we are, our essence as human beings. It's not to change anything. It's not to get anything. But simply to be a fully self-expressed human being. Being a presence of love, of giving, and of caring to others. And I shared that in the end, that choice to be that loving, caring human being does give us something. And it has certainly given me a lot of joy over the years. Because there were times where my life was very, very dark. And it was those small actions, those small words, that I was able to give to others that created a tremendous amount of light for me in my life. And I shared that I wasn't telling him all of this if he did not have the capacity to be this way in the world. This combination of intellect, intuition, and most importantly, action. And again, I repeated, it's not about changing the world, it's about being in the world. It's just a way of being. It's not about changing oneself, it's not even about improving one's life. It's about expressing oneself and enriching one's life, even if everything else remains the same. And I closed off my rather long message by saying that I was writing to him as actually an object lesson, an example of what I was talking about being analytical, discerning, intuiting, and taking action. The fact that I originally noticed his comment that he had no strengths, the effort I took to try to see who he was as a person, to analyze and intuit what his strengths were, and most importantly, my taking action by reaching out to him and writing to him. All of these were an object lesson of a way of being in the world. So I'm sharing this with you. I hope that it gives you something. This was a conversation, a communication with a specific person, but I decided to share it in a video because of the question that the other person asked me. The question they asked of whether there was a way to rise above one's circumstances and attach oneself to something larger. And I would say that the paradox is that one is attaching oneself to something larger by taking action, by expressing oneself, by reaching out in ways that are tiny, by noticing things, by being present. And I just want to leave with this thought that when someone makes a decision to be that person in the world, to be that positive agent for other people, the universe sends you things. The universe sends you people. You start noticing things, opportunities to take action, like I said, even in tiny ways, and the joy and the light that it brings to one's life, even when everything else is dark, is absolutely boundless. Thanks.